Shall we play a game?
Fight all you want, you old fool. You're merely delaying the inevitable.
Thank you for a very enjoyable game.
Thank you for tuning in to the final match of the third round of the regular season, featuring Team Mobile Dolls taking on the Average Joes tonight. After this series, the rankings will be set and a team will be selected to face off against the Average Joes in a winner-take-all finals. Hope to see you there, but for tonight, let's get started with Proxy vs. Crosstoss on Destination, starting now. And starting off Proxy versus Crosstoss, we have Crosstoss spawning up here in the 12 o'clock, and Proxy spawning down here at the 6 o'clock. Technically, Team Mobile Dolls could actually shoot up to first place if they play their cards right this series. Other two teams, unfortunately, kind of been knocked out mathematically, so it's really just down to Team Whopper and Team Mobile Dolls. So we'll have to see how Team Mobile Dolls performs tonight. So far, both players just doing their average, standard, everyday, normal thing, making some workers, gonna throw down some supply buildings. No crazy proxies, no weird cheeses or anything like that. At least that we can see so far. Crosstoss actually opting to make the pylon in the main as I say that. Of course, making that extremely likely to be some sort of 2-gate, but could be a tech build. Based on how we've seen him play, though, it's probably a 2-gate. Proxy throwing down the 9 pool and going immediately for the extractor. Crosstoss will be able to scout this pretty quickly. Already has the worker inside the main. Meanwhile, Proxy's Overlord is still only about halfway up there. Still got a bit to go. Immediately throwing those drones in there. He's going for some sort of speedling build, I imagine. Pool almost finished. Crosstoss indeed going for the 2-gate, throwing down that second gateway. Most peculiar. Actually, even going for the lair. I mean, I was predicting some sort of speedling, obviously. That's why I had clicked the pool. But I'll be damned if he ain't going for a 1-base lair. Could be lurkers, could be mutas, we'll have to see. Crosstoss desperately trying to keep his probe for his live as long as possible, so he can try and maybe scout it out. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to do it. And that probe only living by the skin and in fact dying right there. Meanwhile, 1 zealot on the ramp, 2 more zealots about to pop out, and a 3rd pylon going down. And we see a forge going down. And now that that probe's been cleared out, Proxy throwing down the Hydralist indicating he's wanting to go for lurkers. Crosstoss maybe picking the best choice with the forge, able to make some cannons in his mineral line, make a cannon or 2 at the ramp, and basically be protected from both threats that the lair could provide. What is he going to make behind this mineral line? A cybernetics core. Meanwhile, Zergling speed just finished. Imagine lurker research just starting now as he hit that 200 gas. Crosstoss adding a pylon at the ramp. Meanwhile, Proxy just gathering more and more lings. Sending out 1 Protoss Zealot to scout, it looks like. Taking some shield damage, but for the most part unharmed. We'll be able to quickly regen that, so basically didn't lose anything there. Still pumping zealots. Is adding a few. Alright, one photon cannon at the ramp. Throwing down a Stargate. You have some Hydralisks out on the field. And that Lurker, about 80% done, 75% done. And a full control group of Lings. Meanwhile, cannons up. Goon even coming out. Throwing down a cannon in the mineral line. Feeling like he doesn't want to overcommit, but at the same time, he does need some defense, just in case, because he has been able to scout out what the technology is. Meanwhile, the first Lurkers being morphed now, and a natural hatchery being taken. Proxy very poor right now. Krostos almost double the amount of probes than him, and yet hasn't even been making probes consistently. We'll have a Corsair out on the field soon, be able to scout all this out. However, with 2 cannons at the ramp, I'm feeling like he's going to be A-okay. And those Zealots keeping those Zerglings from being able to run up and just snipe it. Pretty much protected. Yeah. In fact, Proxy, unfortunately, burrowing that Lurker way too close, is going to immediately have it killed off. Meanwhile, more Lings coming up. However, we don't see any follow-up Lurkers. And in fact, now burrowing right on the ramp. Only taking shield damage on all of those. Not even able to do any hull damage with those Lurkers. And with the Corsair out, able to see basically everything on the field. Proxy, though, has barely any drones. Deciding, though, needs to make defenses at the natural. Throwing down more and more. Krostos, though, looks like he is not going to be moving out anytime soon, since he wants to get the robotics facility in case there's any extra Lurkers. In fact, even getting the range, so that way his goons will be even more effective against them. Once he has the observer out, if he needs to be. Meanwhile, Corsair being super annoying, though has not really killed any of these overlords. And Krostos almost 4 times the amount of workers that Proxy has. Unfortunately, making this Zerg extremely poor by having to invest in all this static defense on top of the earlier rush that didn't work. Meanwhile, Krostos, seemingly content, has just started +1, throwing down some more pylons. Has the Citadel of Adun, so that way he can get some Protoss legs. Does have the observatory now, too. Pretty much assembling all the pieces of the puzzle, so that way he can go out and just destroy whatever Proxy has waiting for him. Though he's able to immediately scout all that out, of course, with the Corsair. And just Lings up here at the front. Still no more Lurkers, despite opening them with the rush. Heading on the 3rd gateway. First observer hitting the field. And is finally going to score a kill on one of these overlords. Putting on the supply block down on Proxy. In fact, will he get a second one? Hydralisk, for some reason, running away. Is able to get a second one, so even though he immediately had an overload remade, he still is supply block. Might even happen again as this one overlord keeps flying away from the Hydralisk trying to defend it. And is able to microwave just away and take it out. Still continuing the supply block. Meanwhile, Evolution Chamber going down. +1 ground weapons almost finished. Citadel speed for the Zealots almost finished as well. imagine he's gonna keep pumping out these zealots and then pretty much A-move whatever Proxy has, considering Proxy has been spending a bunch of his larvae on drones to try to catch up on the economy. And in fact, Zealot speed is finished. Crosstoss deciding now or never. Immediately rushing out and annihilating these lings. Do have a few random hydras getting caught out. However, Crosstoss's forces beginning to be spread out as he chases all of these units around. In fact, several zealots chasing one zergling. However, starting to group them up now and push forward. And that one goon able to take out that hydralisk. And finally, these zealots busting down the natural. Starting to work on these sunkens. +1 is just finished as well. And we do have an observer for any lurkers. However, Crosstoss over-prepared as there hasn't been a single lurker that has been on the field since the initial rush. However, going to immediately break through this defense line. Although Protoss units are dwindling, the reinforcements are coming slow and steady. And in fact, these zealots, though, starting to die off. Few sunkens being created. Crosstoss deciding to say screw the hydralisk and going to work immediately on these static D. More and more zealots slowly trickling down. And behind this, Crosstoss is throwing down an expansion. Pretty much has a full rally of zealots coming down. And Proxy looking like he could potentially hold this. However, very quickly, slowly. Well, that's kind of the opposite. But it's slowly starting to spiral out of his control. Is trying to get down some more sunken defense. However, got about 8 zealots in the natural. 2, 3 coming down at a time. Not going to be much more than he can do. And immediately going to work on this natural hatchery. And with that destroyed, Proxy down to just one single layer and a handful of drones. We gotta imagine GG's gonna be coming soon. Is trying to hatch a few more hydralisks. Crosstoss gathering the rest of his forces. And these hydralisks basically evaporating as soon as they hatch. In fact, this one may not even get to hatch. Nope, is gonna make it, but then immediately die. And now, these zealots immediately going after this one hydralisk. Nope, being finally microed up the ramp for the win. And this is the last bastion for Proxy. However, nothing to stop these zealots. And in fact, deciding now to GG. And Crosstoss deflecting Proxy's fast lurker rush puts the Joes up 1-0 on the scoreboard. Zhao Yi Cog is up next to try and take down the ace of the Joes. How will they fare? Only time will tell, and let's find out now. And Crosstoss gets the 2 o'clock spawn on La Mancha. Meanwhile, Zhao Yi Cog gets the 5 o'clock. Proxy, unfortunately, doing its best, choosing a pretty risky high reward strategy. Unfortunately, didn't pay off. We'll have to see what Zhao Yi Cog wants to do. It's going to be some sort of cheese or macro play. For Crosstoss, we can definitely say there's going to be some sort of strategic play. I mean, let's just be honest. If you've watched this league in any capacity, you know that's just how he likes to play. He likes to try to force the game in his direction that he wants to go and then win from there. But both players so far even on the workers. Is going to make that pylon pretty close to that ramp. and send out immediately for the pylon scout. Meanwhile, that depot going down for Zhao Yikog. And let's see exactly what Crosstoss is going to do. And so far, relatively standard, just throwing down one gateway. Zhao Yikog throwing down the barracks. Meanwhile, Crosstoss unable to scout him on the first try. Unbeknownst to him, will scout out Zhao Yikog on the last try, assuming he goes to each corner first. Unable to steal the gas like he usually wants, as Zhao Yikog taking it now. Finally deciding to send out his own scouting worker. Is probably going to scout Crosstoss on the first try. Nope, in fact sending it on the opposite direction. Meanwhile, gas almost finished for Crosstoss, throwing down the core. So far, one gate core, pretty standard. Probably see a factory coming out of Zhao Yikog soon. Going down that second depot. We'll have a Marine out to potentially push this probe away, denying the scout altogether. However, Zhao Yikog sending it out to try to scout out where Crosstoss is. Gonna just barely miss this probe. Meanwhile, that factory has been started for Zhao Yikog, pulling off 2 of the SCVs on gas. Probably indicating he wants to do some sort of expand follow-up. Meanwhile, second gate has been thrown down for Crosstoss. We have 1 goon in production. No probes being made, though. Potentially could be the 10-15 build. Just now getting range. However, one random Marine showing up. Probably thinks he might be getting bunker rushed or something. Though he does have the probe in the main, knows that's possibly not the case. Zhao Yikog, though, deciding to throw down the bunker to get ready for the expansion. Just now finishing the factory is going to make a vulture. Has made pretty continuous Marine production. Though now that he has the 4, will probably stop, since that will fill up the bunker. And with the first goon out, has killed the scouting SCV. Might try to pick off this Marine. 2 more goons following up. And Zhao Yikog already has some SCVs in position in case the goons make their way down to repair that bunker. Continually making Marines and vultures. Excuse me. Hasn't started the add-on on his factory at all yet. Also, a little late throwing down the expansion. Meanwhile, 3 goons moving out. Gonna snipe pretty much all of these Terran Marines as they run back. Might be able to get the vulture. And Crosstoss has only 1 Marine left. Though that bunker is full, almost, of Marines. Not maybe the big advantage he thinks it is. However, picking off these vultures, good find. Almost lost that goon. However, range finally kicking in. Hold positioning these outside of the bunker range. Is going to try to pick off some of these workers and the bunker at the same time. He's lost 1 worker so far. And Crosstoss just pumping goons like there's no tomorrow. Is throwing down a Citadel of Adun as well. Zhao Yikog does have a tank out. No siege mode yet, though. Meanwhile, these SCVs wasting a ton of money trying to keep this bunker repaired. And in fact, Cross Toss evening up the worker differential now. Uh-oh, lost a goon to some poor micro there. Is going to snipe another worker, evening it up. Ooh, in fact, now Cross Toss is in the lead. Zhao Yikog, though, trying to get the command center down. Does have one tank out again, but desperately dancing it back and forth. Cannot afford siege mode or siege tank due to all this repairing that's going on. And again, some pretty bad micro. Sacrificed one of these goons. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. And Zhao Yikog at least has the appropriate number of SCVs to keep the bunker repaired, obviously, as Cross Toss has not been able to break it just yet. However, as he picks off these SCVs, it's continually adding more to make sure that it stays repaired. However, I don't see a way forward to win for Zhao Yikog at this rate. Unable to really afford much of anything due to the fact that all this bunker pressure is keeping him poor, keeping the SCVs from being able to mine, and just basically cutting into all of everything that he's doing. And in fact, this bunker about to blow is able to get one more worker on there to even it up. However, just like that, Cross Toss has finally broke the entrance. Workers being pulled to try to fight these goons off. However, they immediately go to snipe the tank. Going to work on all of the Marines. They're now dead. Only thing left is SCVs. Trying to fight them off. However, Cross Toss microing his goons back and forth. Killing off all of the SCVs coming down to fight. Zhao Yikog has basically nothing left at this point. And with that last worker, Zhao Yikog can't do anything. It's just a matter of cleanup at this point. And in fact, the first DTs hitting the ground. And upon seeing the DTs, it seems like Zhao Yikog has GG. GG. Once again, Cross Toss punishing Zhao Yikog's bunker expand with a mass of goons gets the Joes another point. However, one of the two aces for Team Mobile Dolls has been selected by the Wheel of Fate to try and stop this Protoss streaks. Let's see what Monster can do, starting now. And starting off the third match of this series, we have Monster spawning at the 9 o'clock. And Cross Toss screwing up his pathing on the workers at the 11 o'clock. Cross Toss vs. Monster, something that we would normally see in like potentially an ace match, as both of these players could be considered not only the best player of their respective races, obviously, for the team, but potentially in running for the best player of the team. So we'll have to see what this game is going to look like between these two titans. Monster, sending the Overlord in the wrong direction, is going to scout out the 6 o'clock position. 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock position, roughly. Cross Toss, making a pylon in the natural. And immediately sending out a scout. Looks like he is headed towards the 9 o'clock. We'll be able to scout Monster out very quickly. Monster going for that overpool. Is going to make a few more drones, and then looks like he's going to take his natural hatchery. Meanwhile, this little probe has finally made its way into the main. Has made a gateway. Cross Toss has made a gateway at his natural. Looking to maybe do some sort of gateway expand. Meanwhile, trying to block the natural hatchery, however. Drone immediately going up here to the 3rd to take it. Nope, decided to come back down. And go scout. Another drone coming from the mineral line to make the natural. Is doing his best to block it, however, Monster immediately making it past the drone and throwing it right down. Unfortunately for Monster, is going to find Cross Toss at the very last position. And oh. Cross Toss. Throwing down a pylon. Boy, oh boy, what could that be for? It's only got a forge down. I wonder. And in fact, Monster, not seeing it, has a few lings out, trying to scout out where that probe went and where Cross Toss is. However, first cannon being warped in. Hatchery at the natural, almost finished. Ling finally finds Cross Toss's main, however, does see the natural expansion, or what they think is the natural expansion. And almost perfectly timed, this cannon will finish right as the natural hatchery does, preventing any sort of cancel shenanigans. And Cross Toss throwing down a second cannon. Does have a zealot moving out, however, coming back. Overlord finally scouting everything going on in the main base. However, this natural hatchery is going to die very quickly. Unless Monster does something about it very soon. And in fact, hatching a drone. Even losing the drone. Does have another hatchery being made at the third. Ling scouting everything out. And that natural hatchery falls. And even able to get the drone. Hydraless Den going down. Hydra Speed immediately being researched. Looks like Monster is done screwing around as well. Gonna immediately go into these Hydraless push. Cross Toss just now finished with the core. Sending out another probe. Monster throwing down a creep colony. And Cross Toss again. Throwing down a pylon. However, Cross Toss, maybe not as clever as he thinks he is. Throwing it down in vision up the hatchery. Meanwhile, throwing down another Stargate. And more cannons at the front. Looking like also he might be trying to take his natural expansion sometime soon. And if he definitely didn't have vision of it now, Monster will definitely see these cannons warping in with these extractors. However, hasn't sent any units to really deal with them. Does have speed finished, getting range soon. And this cannon just barely in range of this hatchery. Does get another drone kill. Unfortunately, Cross Toss just being ridiculously cheesy towards Monster. Slowing down his growth as fast as he can. Investing in basically a pylon and 2 cannons at each base to shut it down. However, Monster throwing down 2 hatcheries in the main. Gonna probably go immediately into pumping out as many Hydras as he can to try to bust the front. Meanwhile, Corsair. Robotics facility, probably for Reavers. And this cannon about to take down this hatchery. Meanwhile, 4 Hydras in a league out. Looking like they're poised to try to clear out these cannons in the natural. Does have a few more Hydras being made, about to pop out. And now, Corsairs going to work on the Overlords. Is going to take out those cannons and pylons, losing a few of his forces, but for the most part, immediately taking those out. Corsair about to kill these Overlords, though. Or at least one of them, potentially both. Hydralisk not moving to protect this Overlord just yet. Instead, holding on to the hatchery at the natural. Is going to lose another Overlord, bringing down the supply to 19 in the negatives. Meanwhile, Lings burrowed and stationed all around to make sure nothing gets by. Looks like a drone going down to take another third. Meanwhile, that natural nexus finally finished with workers being Maynard there. And shuttle speed, shuttle, and a Reaver being made, as well as more Corsairs with this Corsair Reaver play. Meanwhile, Monster basically has 9 or so Hydras, with vast quantity of more being pumped out from the 3 hatcheries in his main, also taking that third. However, Corsairs in the main again, killing off all the Overlords to slow everything down. Is able to take all 3 out. And now going to the natural to see if it can't get it anymore. Krostos actually might lose some Corsairs here. Loses 1. However, keeps the other 2 alive. Monster finally deciding it's time to clear out these cannons and the pylon over here at the third. Or what used to be its third. While its new third has just finished down here at the 7-ish o'clock. And moving out with the shuttle now. Going to work on the hatchery, or excuse me, the Overlords above the hatchery and the natural. Also has a Reaver dropping in the main. Is evaporating these drones. Monster finally pulling a couple that I think it was targeted. Gets another 5 or so there. Altogether, that Reaver taking out probably close to 15 or so workers. Meanwhile, Spores going down now in all of the mineral lines. And Monster, unfortunately, having to even pull his workers with this low worker count that he has to make more and more creep colonies and static defenses to protect himself. Meanwhile, Corsairs going out, scouting around. Hydralisk moving around in the middle of the map. Looks like they're going to try and go for a counterattack. Hard to say. They might be able to honestly break through. In fact, almost looks like they might be able to. But with this Reaver reinforcement, took out 14 workers, it looks like. Gonna immediately push back all these Hydralisks and warp in more cannons. Corsair still going around hunting. Do have +1 air attack. Meanwhile, Monster slowly trying to work its drone count back up. Has made a plethora of sunken colonies at its front to protect against any counterattacks that might come out. However, because there's been so much action going on, I haven't been able to really look at Krostos's tech tree. He's actually warping in carriers. He's gone from Cannon Rush into Corsair Reaver into carriers now. Meanwhile, Monster slowly growing, though constantly losing overlords. Krostos seems content to trade a couple of Corsairs at a time for all of these overlords. And in fact, one hiding just near his base that he has not found yet. Getting close to being mined out in his main, however, pretty healthy here in the natural. Monster finally getting caught up in workers. Basically maxing all of his larvae as soon as it comes out whenever these overlords hatch. Is again blocked in supply. Meanwhile, more Corsairs going to scout. These Corsairs from Krostos has been very relentless this game. We do have 2 carriers out, 2 more being made. Krostos was a little supply blocked himself. And this Hydra force starting to really grow. Krostos may finally scout out this 3rd base. And does immediately fly over and see it. Going to work on this Overlord. Is going to be able to catch it, however, trades out one of the Corsairs. Both Corsairs. And only has one extremely hurt one left. Flying in now with a new, completely healthy one. And these Hydralisks and Lings going for a counterattack. However, these Cannons and Reavers basically telling them, if you want to come through us, go ahead. Meanwhile, 3rd and 4th carrier almost finished. Hydralisk moving around in the middle of the map. Desperately trying to find any hole that they might be able to exploit in the defense of Krostos. However, Krostos done a pretty good job protecting himself so far. Monster finally going for the lair. Does have a few more static defenses at all of his bases. The Ling trying to scout out. And these carriers are on the move. Where are they going to end up going? They're going to fly immediately over this burrowed Ling. Oh, okay. I was like, oh my god, he's actually going to fly him. Nope. Just barely didn't fly him over that burrowed Ling, but is able to see them as the carriers are a little spread out. And if not that burrowed Ling, this one burrowed Ling will definitely see every bit of them. Monster trying to immediately catch these carriers. This Hydra force will be able to overpower them if he could just only catch them. And in fact, losing sight of them, has now found them. Trying to maneuver around all of these neutral power generators in the middle of the map. And actually, seeing that the carriers are not at the home base, has decided that maybe it's time to try for another counterattack. However, seeing those Reavers and Cannons, deciding that no, don't want to do that, as it's just going to waste supply. Meanwhile, carriers taking out these spore colonies will probably immediately take out this rest of the expansion. Monster throwing down a 4th, though, is unable to decide what he wants to do with these Hydralisks. And now unburrowing all these drones, trying to run them away. But however, these carriers making short work of any drone he can get a hold of. And going for a push. Monster, though, immediately running into a wall of reavers and cannons. No way he could bust that anytime soon. He's gonna need some sort of hive tech to deal with that. You know, Guardians, Ultralists, Defilers, something. However, with these carriers, with +2 air attack, Monster is looking like they're in a deep, deep amount of trouble. In fact, going to work on this on the evolution chamber, taking out the ability for Monster to make any more spore colonies, and taking out the Hydralisk Den pretty much locks out all the anti-air options that Monster had. Monster trying to desperately rush its Hydralisk back down to try to fend off these carriers. However, Cross Toss immediately will fly them to safety. And almost mined out at the main, has one last little barely mineral patch left. However, does have 4 or 5 more carriers. Meanwhile, taking the few that he has down here in the south part of the map to harass and take out whatever he can take to force these Hydralisks to run back and forth. And these carriers got several kills each. Cross Toss down to this one little bit of mining left. However, it does have a pretty substantial mineral bank. Throwing down more pylons. Does have 3 carriers making at a time now. And Monster, moving all of his Hydralisks around, potentially trying to go for a counterattack, has also double expanded back to his 3rd and the new base. Meanwhile, Cross Toss back up to his shenanigans, dropping a probe down there at one of the new bases. However, carriers attacking in multiple areas, forcing these Hydralisks all over the place. Is able to save these carriers, though, from being destroyed from the big Hydra force outside of his base, buying time for the ones down in the south to, again, just be annoying and kill and take out anything and everything that they can, slowly whittling down all of Monster's forces. Cross Toss, though, he's got about 3,000 minerals or so left to mine before he's going to be completely mined out. And these cannons, unfortunately, finally will be silenced before going up by the units of Monster. Meanwhile, carriers shooting, drawing fire away from them as they're going to link up from the force in the south. Taking out that Hydralisk Den multiple times, though finally grouping up. And now that there's 9 or so carriers here, this Zerg base doesn't stand a chance. Meanwhile, these cannons did actually end up finishing. We'll be able to take down all of these bases over here. And Cross Toss may be on the verge of winning this. Monster does still have a substantial Hydralisk force, however, losing all of the overlords in his main, all of the tech, all of the dens, the evolution chambers, the everything's, leaving him in a bad position, going again for another counterattack. However, these Reavers ready to go. Massive shots going off. However, not much Monster can do but back off. And these carriers have completely cleared out the main. These other carriers finishing off the base over on the right side here at 2 o'clock. Is going to pull these carriers back as this Hydra horde comes up. However, now the natural is in trouble as the carriers from the main finally moving up. And more carriers flying over. Monster basically down to 2 bases. However, Crosstoss has just mere literal single-digit minerals left before he is completely mined out. Monster running around with what little bit of Hydra Force he has left. Do have some more carriers sitting on top of the cannons. And it's just a matter of time until he cleans up the rest of these bases from Monster. Hydralisk finally starting to try to attack up. Cannons will cover the retreat from the carriers, however, is picking off a few Hydralisks here and there every time this does happen. Might lose the pylon here. About 12 carriers on the field, about 15 carriers on the field. Have only seen, I think, a single zealot for gateway units this entire map so far. And this base looks like it's next on the chopping block for Protoss. Crosstoss moving down the carriers to take it out. Hydralisk just really unsure due to the void-like behavior, I believe, which way they want to go based on the safety protocols that it has. Constantly recalculating when it can win the battle and when it can't. So we do have a little itty-bitty drone that ended up burrowing. And these Hydralisks just constantly trying to find any little bit of area that they might be able to take advantage of, but there's just nothing. Crosstoss may be mined out, but he is not going to be mined out in the true sense of the word in a very long time, thanks to his mineral bank. And in fact, these last couple carriers deciding to finally move down and attack. Meanwhile, ferrying some more probes over to this base over here. And we just have these 3 carriers just chilling in the main. Looks like they might be the relief force in case the Hydralisks might start to break through the front lines there, but honestly, we don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Monster reduced to this one little base. This game started out with a cannon rush into Corsair Reaver, into now carriers, and Monster going for a last-ditch attack, dying constantly, and in fact deciding GG. Crosstoss advances to the match point of this series to take on potentially the next opponent for the all kill. GG. Crosstoss getting cheeky with cannons and reavers to buy time for his carrier fleet to come online, seals the game for the Joes, and puts the series in match point territory. ZNZZ-Bot has been selected by fate to try to bring victory to his team and stop Crosstoss from getting the all kill. Let's see if he can do it. ZNZZ-Bot summoned to try and stop this all kill. It's going to be the match point, potentially, for this series. Though, if we're being honest, we think Crosstoss has this in the bag. Just to be frank. I mean, ZNZ-Bot is no pushover. It's currently ranked 4th highest Protoss bot on the Snail ladder. But PvP has been a pretty big specialty of Crosstoss as long as they're able to kind of keep their strategy going and not get it interrupted or intercepted. But up here at the 2 o'clock, we have Cross Toss spawning in for the average Joes. And of course down here, as we started off when I first started speaking, we have Z Bot spawning into 7 o'clock. Both players going immediately for a pylon scout. So far, builds looking like they are immediately being mirrored. Gonna see a gateway coming out of Z Bot, and a gateway coming in for Cross Toss. Meanwhile, both workers unfortunately going to the wrong starting locations, though will scout each other out very quickly and see that as cross positions. However, Cross Toss blocking the way with 2 probes typically means he is interested in going DTs. Meanwhile, both players starting their gas, again mirroring builds. Z Bot immediately going for the cross position scout after not finding Cross Toss at the 5 o'clock. Unfortunately, buys time for Cross Toss to just basically still be unscouted and do whatever he wants. Meanwhile, Z Bot core just now started. Has no units coming out of the gateway currently. Meanwhile, first Zealot about to pop for Cross Toss and throwing down his own Cybernetics core. Has finally completed the wall. Oh, maybe not. Kind of bugging out there as he's trying to fix it. And getting everything hold positioned. Meanwhile, core for Z Bot is about to finish. Meanwhile, core for Cross Toss is roughly 60-70%. There's a Protoss pylon about to finish. It's the most important thing about this whole match right here. This single pylon. Nothing ever that is going to come before or after this moment. See, it's the most important moment of the entire... No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, guys. Throwing down a forge, though. Did scout a Citadel of a Dune. However, Z Bot also going ranged, which is typically not what you're going to do when you're doing DTs, unless it's a fake out. Very interesting. Curious to see what Z Bot does with this Citadel of a Dune. And adding another gateway. Adding 2 more gateways in total. So that means Z Bot will have 3 gateways. 4 gateways even. Going completely all in with this. Still not 100% sure what the Citadel of the Dune is going to be doing. However, doesn't seem to be making any sort of Templar Archives follow-up. Meanwhile, Cross Toss putting in Templar Archives. Has a cannon going down. 2nd gateway. Pretty much expecting to see DTs at this point, it seems like. However, Z Bot instead going pure gateway spam. In fact, not even getting speed on the Citadel of a Dune. Curious if it had planned to go DTs, but then when it kept seeing the probe in the base, maybe kind of was like, nah, we're not going to do that. Never mind. And, you know, completely switched gears to this 4 gate all in. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Meanwhile, another cannon going up at that ramp. Still completely blocked in. Z Bot moving across with about 4 goons. Has a couple more goon follow-up. Still has not done anything with the Citadel of the Dune. And the probes finally sent back to mine. First DT's about to hit the field. And Z-Bot unable to march right up the ramp, walking right into this Zealot and these cannons. And the first DTs out on the field, marching their way towards Z-Bot's base. Z-Bot desperately throwing down a forge, knowing immediately what's coming now that it's seen the shimmers, throwing down the robotics facility as well. Wants to have all detection options available to it. Plugging its ramp even with these goons. Meanwhile, second set of DTs about to pop out. And doing a decent job keeping these all on the ramp. However, Crosstoss slowly fights his way up. Does have one blocked, but immediately swiping it a few times, sending it flying. And getting immediately on these cannons. Almost bought enough time for them to be warped in, but these DTs able to make their way up the ramp eventually and into the mineral line. Desperately trying to throw down another cannon. However, Z-Bot losing all of its workers. 2 more DTs working on these goons at the ramp. Is starting to work on the robotics, however, noticing the cannon warping in, starting to take that out. Pretty much the only thing Z-Bot can potentially try to do at this point is try and backstab with the amount of goons that he has, but with these DTs slowly popping out in pairs, Crosstoss can just block the ramp, and then that's all she wrote. And in fact, has one lonely worker mining gas. And with that, Z-Bot has no workers left. And these goons starting to be picked off by these DTs. The DTs at the ramp slowly chopping their way up. The DTs in the main chopping their ways down and everything. And with that, Z-Bot GG's. The average Joes have taken this in an all kill. GG. Crosstoss rushing DTs and holding off the 4-gate with some well-placed cannon seals the series for the average Joes in an all-kill. After 3 rounds now, that puts Team Whopper in first place, Team Mobile Dolls and Team HAL 9000 tied for second, and Team Megabyte in last. This means that Team Whopper will be facing off against the Joes for a best-of-7 finals starting January 21st. Hope to see you there, and thanks for the continued support this season. Have a good night.